Hi everyone, this is Sly with the Master Quest Gerudo Training Ground tutorial. So first of all, I'm going to show you the 5 free checks in this dungeon. You don't need any items to get these 5 chests. And if you're playing on Keezy, or you get at least 1 key in these first 5 checks, then you can get a 6th check in the maze. So technically this chest requires lens, however with the trick where lens is only required for the chest minigame and wasteland, that is in logic to get. And as you can see, there aren't keys on these doors like there are in vanilla. There are only 3 keys, or only 3 locks and 3 keys in this dungeon, so there's no extra keys. If you want to get all the chests in this dungeon, you're going to have to get all 3 keys. And so there's 1 chest that's still locked. That's the 6th chest that you can check that you can get for free if you get a key or you're playing on Keezy. And at this point, if you have all 3 keys, then you just want to head to the center and hammer a rusted switch through that box in order to spawn the last chest up there. Or if you're playing on Keezy and you have hammer, then you want to do that as well. At this point, if you're playing on emulator, you want to save and quit to get back to the entrance from that point of the maze. On VC, it's about the same, maybe slightly faster to walk back through the maze from that point. And from here, if you have bow, or you're here as a child with slingshot, you can open the right side of GTG and do a fight. The fight in there does not require bombs like it does in vanilla. It just requires sword. And technically it's only on logic as adult, but you can do it as child as well. And now we have the biggest item requirement in this dungeon, which is fire source. A fire source hard locks 10 of the checks in this dungeon. So you are only going to be able to get 5 or 6 chests if you don't have, or 5 to 7 chests if you go into that room and fight the enemies. So yeah, 10 out of the 17 checks are hard locked by fire. So fighting the iron knuckle in the sand makes it slightly difficult once you start knocking it back with Master Sword, because you have to close the distance and you have to do that slower than normal. So what I usually do is I hit it twice, and then move forward, and then hit it twice again in order to finish it off once it's getting knocked back. So in this room, the silver rupees are placed differently than in vanilla. Getting this silver rupee here technically requires long shot, but you can get it with a trick, and that's to stand against this wall, hookshot this part of the target, and hold forward and mash B after hookshotting. It's important that you hold forward in order to get that, otherwise your jump slash will just miss that silver rupee. And then we hang off this ledge to get another silver rupee. Let's get the next one. And then from here, I think it's easiest to hang off the ledge and drop down there to get that rupee. And then this freezer is guarding another rupee. You don't need to kill it. Let me demonstrate in order to get it. But I mean, it's good not to run into the ice there. And also killing it might give you magic. So if you're low on magic, you might want to do that anyway. As you can see, there's no firewalls along the left side, so climbing this area is just fastest along the left. And from here, I'm gonna equip bow and bottle. The bow is in order to take out these 3 skulls quickly. But obviously you could let them drop down and take them out normally. And then we have 2 Stalfos to fight. So it's just the 3 skulls and 2 Stalfos in this room in order to spawn a chest. Now from this point we have the next big item requirement, and that is bottle, actually. You need bottle in order to collect blue fire and use it to melt a red ice wall to get to the next area of the dungeon. So bottle's actually hard-locking 6 checks in this dungeon. As opposed to vanilla GTG, strength 2 only locks 1 check in this dungeon. So it's a lot less valuable. You could come here without strength 2 and feel better about yourself. Also, there's no switch or anything to open this door, so you can just come in here. We're going to stand in the middle of these guys, hopefully do a good job of spinning. Alright, you can kill these guys without all this nonsense. Wow, that was really bad. You could also do that with Master Sword. I guess you just have to get lucky. But yeah, just one check in here. And from this point, you technically need Song of Time to keep going. But if you have hovers, you can do a trick where you stand on the chest next to me and grab the part of the wall. You can also, if you have shield and bombs, store a ground jump in order to grab onto this part of the wall. Now from here, you can shoot a crystal switch in order to open the room on the side here. This room is where the final chest of the dungeon that you spawn by hitting the hammer switch in the middle of the central maze will appear. So the chest will be here if you were able to get 3 keys, or you're playing on Keysy and you hammered the center switch. Since we don't have that, we are going to set for Roar's Wind here. In order to return here quickly after hitting the switch in the center of the maze. And from here, obviously you can't stand in the center in Master Quest and hit these eyes from there. So you have to do this the intended way, which is definitely more obnoxious. And this is the only hard bow requirement in the dungeon. There was the eye switch at the beginning of the dungeon. However, you can get into the room that locks in a different way by coming this direction and then entering from the other side. So there's only one bow locked, hard locked check in this dungeon. But that does require that you have backups like hookshot to hit the switch, for example. It's a good idea to pick up the magic there because we will need more fires. Like you'll need to use a fire source a little bit more in this dungeon. I like to jump slash onto that switch while these things are loading. It feels like it saves time, but maybe not. You could also damage boost, or not damage boost, you could roll into the fire circle there and open the chest through it by abusing iframes. However, there's not really a reason to do that because this switch is just available. Now from here, we'll hit the first rusted switch in the dungeon, the last one that I'm mentioning anyway. And this actually spawns this hookshot target there, and opens the right side of the maze from the front, so it opens the door over there. If you have long shot, you can immediately long shot to the right side of the maze, or if you have hovers, fire arrows, and hookshot, you can do what I'm about to do. Otherwise, you probably want to save and quit and enter the right side of the maze from the front. Oh. That wasn't gonna work. I got no speed. But yeah, essentially we can roll onto this platform here, and then use hookshot to get up to this switch, to this target. And so there are 2 chests on this side of the maze. And since we have a key now, we could go and check the one chest over there. There you go. However, that's a little bit slow. And because I'm playing on chest size matched contents, I know that's not a key. So even if I had 2 keys and could get to the center of the maze, it's still a little bit slow. Now from here, if you have long shot, you could just long shot directly to that torch. If you don't, you can hop down here and hook shot it. And it's worth mentioning that you can actually traverse across all of these platforms with hover boots just by rolling onto the side. But it's definitely a little bit finicky whether or not the fire circle will hit you. So I wouldn't recommend trying it. Yeah, a little bit more about that later after we clear out this room. So once again, this is a room that only requires sword to clear. But it is only in logic as adult, even if you can open this as child. There's 2 outlier enemies here. There's a Lizalfos right here that spawns when you get near it, and then there's the Armos right there. That's just kind of hanging out on the side. Alright, so here's our second out of 3 keys. If that fight didn't go well, and you need some hearts, there is a fairy here. And you'll want some hearts in order to do the toilet chest if you don't have Zora Tunic. That being said, there are only 3 silver rupees in there, so it's slightly faster to clear out toilet. At this point, if your only fire source is Din's, then you're going to want to shoot an arrow through this torch in order to light that one. But as I mentioned, you could do 2 hover boots rolls to get over here and then quickly get over to the side in order to light that with Din's. But actually getting all the silver rupees that way might be pretty tight, and you might have to do it in 2 trips. So I'm just going to do this with fire arrow, which is the simplest way to do this. And if we move fast enough, we can land on a hookshot target that will spawn. Uh-oh, okay. Pretty much, if you don't accidentally grab the ledge on one of these platforms, then you did it fast enough. So we can land on here. Ah, overshot it. At this point, if you just have long shot, then you can long shot over to that torch. So if you have fire arrows, you want to aim towards the back corner of this web here to burn it, because we're going to set up a back walk and avoid an enemy that will fall from the ceiling. If you have Dins, then you can just walk up to it and use Dins and kill the enemy simultaneously. So we're going to do this back walk. Stay towards the bottom left corner with boots, swim towards the front right corner, and then back around this way, and that'll cause the rays to miss you. So we can do this toilet pretty quickly. And that went so much better than the last time. And then climbing up with the enemy here, you just have to be in one of these corners when you climb up, and it won't be able to hit you. Now at this point, if you don't have hovers and you did this room by shooting this torch and just jumping between the platforms, then you want to save and quit. But if you do have hovers and you're playing on VC, then you want to traverse across this room. With emulator, okay, saved it. With emulator, it's probably faster to just save, quit, and enter the maze from the front. But this is slightly faster on PC. By a couple of seconds, so I definitely took a couple of seconds of time loss. If your movement isn't great, then saving and quitting is a safe option. And so we're just going to get the last chest in this maze, and then hammer the rusted switch in the center of the maze. Just hammer this in the box. At this point, if you didn't set for Roar's Wind in the room up there, then you will need to climb back up to that room. So you want to save and quit from here. But because we set for Roar's Wind, we can just go up there in a couple of seconds. And then get this chest here. And that's all the checks in this dungeon. Thanks for watching. I wanted to go more in depth into the room before toilet. There are two situations in which you could enter this room. Either you do what I did in the tutorial and you entered from that room, and you're able to raise this hookshot target by hitting the rusted switch over there. That means you had a fire source, a bottle, and hammer at least. But there's another situation in which you could enter this room, and that's if you had bow in the entranceway and you came through this room where you fight all the enemies. And in that case, the only logical... there's a couple of ways to do this room, but both ways require that you have hovers in order to get in between each of the platforms, because you can't hookshot up to that target in order to reach some of the platforms. So either you long shot over to that torch and use dins, or you shoot this torch directly with fire arrows, or you stand here with bow and let's see if I can get a good angle and hit that torch this way. But either way, you're going to need hovers to do this room if you are unable to raise that hookshot target. So here's an example of the case where we were able to raise the hookshot platform. And I'm going to show you how to do it with long shot, a fire source, and without hovers. So we just long shot it down to this torch, and then we light it with dims, and then we hop between each of the platforms. Doing this is a little bit tight. If you grab the ledge too many times or miss this hookshot target too many times, you might not make it. So you just need to be aware of that. So as you can see, the fire came up right after I was done with that. You can split this into 3 trips if necessary. And then we'll just long shot back up to the target and jump down to get the last silver rupee. And long shot back to the torch to enter toilet. So once again, we have a case where you were able to raise the hookshot target. And on the left, we have an example of doing this in logic with the bow in order to light that torch. And on the right, we have a way of doing this out of logic with hookshot and dins that involves jumping on the platforms but not hitting the fire circles and getting knocked off the platform. So as you can see on the left, with the arrows, we keep shooting, returning to this lit torch in order to light the unlit torch. On the right, we have an example of me jumping onto a hidden hookshot target that has not been raised yet. So the one on the right is a really kind of ridiculous way of doing things and is very much out of logic. The one on the left is in logic and is also very hard. You have to be able to traverse these platforms very quickly. It's worth noting that toilet still requires a fire source, so even if you use the bow strat on the left, you will need a fire source in the next room. And as you can see on the right screen, we're able to jump onto these spawned hookshot platforms and get to toilet. And on the left, we can do the same from here. And that's it. Thanks for watching.